After 8.5 years since being announced, after changing studios, and after the most insane advertising from any film I've seen, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is finally out. It's some of the biggest news in the world for FNaF fans, including me, so of course I've gotta watch it. Although I feel like watching it just once isn't right, I feel like to fully experience the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, you've gotta go spend 5 nights at the movie theater. So let's do that. Prepare yourself for the graveyard shift and let's spend 5 nights at Freddy's. Alright, night 1 has been completed, so I'll go over my experience for my first viewing of the movie. I guess first of all, as you can see, I'm pretty dripped out. I wore a full suit, a bow tie to be like Freddy, and also the official Five Nights at Freddy's top hat. And I brought my Sanchi Freddy plush because I felt like it was the most fitting plush to bring, and it's also my first plush that I ever got. I mean, not first plush I ever got, but first FNaF plush. But yeah, I'll put you like here, I guess. The theater I went to, unfortunately, didn't have anything cool like the pizza boxes, but that's okay, because I have a pizza box right over here. And they also unfortunately didn't have a movie poster, which was surprising, but that's okay, because I also have a Five Nights at Freddy's movie poster right here. Since they weirdly didn't have any type of FNaF advertising anywhere, I just took a picture in front of this thing and also in the theater itself. As you can see, my girlfriend bought her Toy Chica plush, which doesn't really make sense, because Toy Chica's not in the movie, but she likes the character. So this theater, as I was walking in, it was actually not as full as I thought it would be. It filled out a little later on. But yeah, as people came into the theater, I noticed a lot of people actually were dressed for the FNaF movie. I noticed one person wearing one of the cloak hoodies. I saw a few other people wearing just FNaF themed hoodies, like a Bonnie one and stuff like that. Not anything too extreme, but you know, they were dressed for the occasion, and so was I. And don't worry, I'm not wearing a full suit, bow tie, and top hat for all my viewings of the movie. It was just the first one. So yeah, watching this movie, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. There were a lot of like pretty dumb scenes in it. You know, me and my girlfriend looked at each other being like, wow, that's crazy that happened. But, you know, I still enjoyed it. I was smiling throughout the whole thing. I absolutely loved it. My viewing for the movie was good too. We were in a pretty good seat, like basically in the middle of the theater. Nobody in the theater was loud or anything. I was pretty worried that there would be a bunch of little kids just like screaming. A lot of people were worried that they would hear people going like horror, 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 or just like saying memes out loud during the movie, but luckily my theater was really quiet. It was almost like unnervingly quiet. Nobody was really reacting to anything. There were even like some pretty big cameos that got like slight reactions, but it was still very quiet. Before I move on to night 2, while we're still in night 1, I'll talk about everything that happened in night 1, give you a brief summary. Because the movie was split into 5 nights, of course, which I was a little bit worried about. I was kind of scared it would just be one night, and that wouldn't make sense with the title, Five Nights at Freddy's. So I'm glad it did actually have 5 nights. So the movie starts off in basically actually a night 0, because we're not actually following the main character yet. It's just a night guard. He's in the pizzeria. Basically, he's getting chased by the animatronics. He unfortunately doesn't escape. He ends up in some type of weird, like, torture device looking thing where a Freddy head with saw blades is coming towards him, tries to escape, he fails, and he presumably dies. Then there's this really cool type of intro scene where there's these like 8-bit characters showing a bunch of scenes from FNaF with some really good music playing. I think everybody agrees it was awesome. So now after that, the movie starts off with a character, the main character Mike, working as a security guard at a mall. So he ends up getting fired from his job, of course, so Mike ends up at a career counselor looking for a new job. It's this dude, Steve Raglan. But basically he says that Mike's options are very limited because he keeps getting fired from all his jobs, and the only one he can get is a night shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Mike says, I can't work nights, and then he just leaves. We go back to where Mike lives. We find out that he's taking care of his sister Abby. We find out that basically when he was younger, Mike was with his brother Garrett and his parents in a forest. His brother Garrett goes off to play and ends up actually getting kidnapped by somebody. Then we're introduced to a character named Aunt Jane, who's basically trying to take custody of Abby, but you know, since Mike has no job, it would be pretty easy for her to take custody of her. So Mike's like, okay, I've got to get this job. He calls up Steve Raglan and he asks when he can start working. So he starts his shift, he watches a training tape, not really anything too important there. He sees the animatronics, and then he goes to sleep. So Mike does this thing where every night he tries to go into the exact same dream, because he wants to go see when Garrett got kidnapped, his younger brother, and see if he can see any new details, try to figure out who killed him. And while he's here, he has another one of those dreams, except this time it's a little bit different. Instead of just it ending when Garrett gets taken, there are actually these 5 kids, which are definitely supposed to represent the 5 animatronics. He asks them if they saw who took his brother, and then they all run off, and he wakes up. Yes, that was night 1. I thought it was really good up to that point, and I really enjoyed my first viewing of the movie. Although I had watched the whole thing, I saw a bunch of cool stuff, I thought it was great, and I really wanted to watch it again. So let's now move on to night 2. Alright, night 2 of spending 5 nights at Freddy's. As you can see, this time I didn't want to wear an entire suit, and instead I wore this little security outfit. I noticed in the movie that when Vanessa, gives him a security badge, it's this exact one that Sanchi made, so I was like, oh, well, perfect. I can just easily dress up as a security guard. So yeah, second viewing of the movie. This time I went with my dad, I went to a theater, and again, didn't have the pizza boxes, didn't have the poster, which I was surprised about, because I had been to this movie theater before and they did have the poster. Not sure why they got rid of it already. So yeah, this was going about the same as it was last time, not really anything different. But when I did actually get into the theater, something I noticed was that there were not many people at all. Nobody was dressed up for FNaF, which I'm not surprised about, because it was a bit after the movie released, and the theater had maybe 2 groups of people there, but weirdly it was actually a lot louder than the other one. The other one, like I said, it was very quiet, nobody was really saying anything. Maybe that's just because it was the first viewing, everyone was like, okay, I'll let people listen to it. This time it was a lot louder, I heard a lot of laughs and gasps, I could tell they were enjoying the movie. Yeah, this time watching the movie, I had already seen it before, and I honestly really enjoyed it. The first time around, like I said, there were a lot of dumb moments, and since then I had a lot of time to let it settle in my mind, and I wasn't surprised by all the dumb things that happened. So I kind of just ignored them, and I really enjoyed the movie. Now that I had already seen it, and I wasn't just overwhelmed with excitement, I was actually able to pay attention a lot more, and I noticed there were a lot of scenes that were actually pretty creepy. I'll mention it later on when we get to night 3, but there was this one part where Foxy's standing at the end of a hall in the darkness, just standing there. And it was actually pretty creepy looking. And back in night 1, when Mike first sees the animatronics and he peeks into the curtains, flashing his light at them, there's some pretty creepy shots with them just standing there lifeless. That is one of the main things that I'll critique later on, which is I wish they had leaned into that more, with them just being unsettling with how just blank they are, because they're animatronics. But I'll talk about later, they have a lot more emotion, and they make angry faces, and I feel like that's really weird, but I'll talk about that more later. Yeah, honestly, even though I'd already watched it before, I wasn't bored of the movie at all. I had a great time, and I was still very excited for all of the awesome moments. There are some big reveals in the movie that I was just smiling so big when they happened, and some small details that I wanted to get another look at. Yeah, night 2, there wasn't actually really anything too interesting here. There's some new stuff. As far as I remember, all that really happens is Mike's going to the pizzeria. Before he can go, Abby says that she really wants to go, but Mike's like, no, you can't come with me, so she doesn't come with him. And then he goes in, nothing really too interesting happens until he goes to sleep. So basically the same thing that happened before. He's in his dream, his brother gets kidnapped, and then at the end of the dream, the 5 kids are there. He asks who took his brother, then they bolt off, except this time he ends up chasing one of them. It was the one that's dressed as Foxy, and they turn around and scream in his face, and it's a pretty cool moment because he has black tears coming down, so it's the ghost kids in the FNaF games. And that was honestly the biggest jump scare of the movie, in my opinion. That one really got me. And then after he screams, he slashes his arm. You can see a big gash in his arm where it's bleeding, and then he wakes up. This time when he wakes up though, there's actually somebody pressing the ringer on the door of the pizzeria. He goes there, and it's actually a police officer named Vanessa. She points out that there's blood coming down his arm, and then you notice that that cut he got in his dream is actually a cut he got in real life as well. So she goes and gets the med kit and stuff, fixes up his arm, and he's like, how did you know where that med kit was? And she just says that she likes going to Freddy's a lot. She loved it as a kid, so she just comes here a lot, I guess. But yeah, Vanessa in this night is basically just to give the backstory for the animatronics a bit. She just tells him that there were 5 missing kids, and then they also press the Showtime button, a little performance plays from the animatronics. Other than that, nothing really too interesting happens, and that is the end of night 2. Again, I enjoyed watching it up until this point. Still, I thought everything was going great in that movie. I really loved like that reference to the crying child in the game with the tears going down, and I thought the movie was great so far. And with my second viewing, I still wasn't tired of it yet. I really loved it, and honestly, I am, I'm not really that excited to go watch it a third time because I have already seen it twice, but I mean, I am kind of excited. There are still a lot of moments that I do want to see again, and I'm gonna go do that tonight. So I guess I'll see you in night 3. Alright, just got back from my third viewing of the FNaF movie. You'd think I'd be tired of it by now, but no, I loved it. I really did enjoy it this time. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it, and the more I want to stay at Freddy's forever. But yeah, so my third viewing, every time I've been going to a different theater, because I want to see what type of different FNaF stuff they have. This one actually did have a poster finally. It was actually on the outside of the building, and it was very high up. I've never seen such high up movie posters before, but there it was. You may notice that it's bright outside and not nighttime, but I can assure you that it got dark pretty quickly. The movie poster was cool. The thing that surprised me is I walked into the theater, and then on the counter, there was a little advertisement saying that they had Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So they didn't have the pizza boxes, but they did have apparently a FNaF style of pizza, I guess. It was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with pepperoni, sausage, applewood smoked bacon, and they had that there. So I saw that and I was like, alright, I guess I'm getting that then. I'd love to try Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. They said that they actually weren't doing that anymore. It was a promotion they were doing for a little bit, but now, I mean, I could still buy the pizza, it's just it would be a little bit more expensive, so I did. And then, since the promotion was over, they actually, took the display off and we're gonna go throw it away, but then we're like, are you gonna throw it away? And he was like, oh, you want it? And then I was like, yeah. So, I actually did end up getting that. So that was pretty cool. I'm glad I ended up going on this random day and asking for the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, because apparently I get to keep this little thing. Not sure what I'm gonna do with it, but that's pretty cool, and I am happy to have it. Yeah, so I watched the movie, and now this one was actually the loudest viewing, surprisingly, because you would think the loudest one would be the first one I watched, people in the audience being really surprised by stuff and excited. It ended up actually being this one, which is a bit after the movie release. The reason for this is because there were a bunch of kids in the audience. I assume they were FNaF fans. Actually they didn't really react when MatPat came on screen, but they did react to a lot of stuff, and I heard them being like, oh, I'm scared, and they were laughing a lot, and it was nice to see people enjoying FNaF. Yeah, so night 3, I believe the first thing that happens is, MatPat, like I said before, so basically Aunt Jane and the lawyer Doug, as well as Max the babysitter and some dude Jeff, who I believe is her brother, are at a cafe. Basically, Jeff suggests that they go rough up the place and break in, because it's Mike's job to keep people out, so if they break in, maybe he'll get fired and Aunt Jane can get custody of Abby. So we get this cool scene where Jeff, this dude Hank, and this dude Carl go over to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to go destroy the place. First thing we see is Carl, a character who I don't think actually has any voice lines. I don't think he says a word, he kind of just goes. I think that's about all he does, but he's a fun character, and then basically he gets killed by the cupcake, who has a bit more mobility than you would think he would. This night's really where my problems for the film come into play, because the cupcake can jump and kill people, which is weird. I don't know how he does that. And then the characters show a lot of emotion, not what you would want, because I feel like the main appeal for animatronics being scary is that they're kind of just lifeless, and because of that, it's creepy when they look at you. But if you give them a lot of life and they look at you, that's not creepy, it's just like a living thing looking at you. Because basically, Hank comes around and seeing Carl getting mauled by the cupcake, and then Chica turns her head and gives an angry face and her eyes light up. And I think that would have been a lot creepier if she just had a dull expression and turned and looked at him and just stood there. But, that's what they did. Then Hank screams, that's what people laughed at. Hank's screaming, running, he gets killed, and then we see Jeff. he also gets killed, which actually is a pretty creepy shot I liked. And then also Max, the babysitter, comes in and she also gets killed. And then because she died, she was the babysitter, Mike has to bring Abby to work. And then basically while Mike is sleeping, one of the ghosts tells Abby to come play, and she plays with the animatronics. Then Mike comes out and he's like, wow, you shouldn't be playing with these guys, they could kill you, let's go. And then they go. Also, like I mentioned before, Mike did go to sleep again. What happens this time in his dream is the same as before, except instead of the 5 kids being there, it's just the one blonde kid who's sitting down, turned away from Mike and playing with a stick in the dirt. So Mike asks the kid to tell him who took his brother, and then the kid asks what he'll get in return. And then Mike said he'll give anything. And then we see that the kid drew Spring Bonnie in the dirt, and then Mike wakes up. Yeah, that's everything I can remember from night 3. Like I said, there are some things that I feel like could have been changed a bit, but it doesn't really ruin the film. I still love it. Even viewing it the 3rd time, I loved the movie. And I'm kind of excited to watch it a 4th time, which is weird. Oh yeah, also, I didn't know what else to wear FNaF related, so I just wore my Chuck E. Cheese shirt. But yeah, so I'll see you in night 4 when I watch it again. Alright, I am back from watching the FNaF movie a 4th time, and honestly, I enjoyed it a lot. It's weird. I don't know how I can watch it this many times and still love it just the same. Maybe even more. Like, the more I watch it, the more I'm, like, expecting all of the dumb stuff, and, like, I grow to like it more, and I don't know, the movie's just so good. I can't stop thinking about it for some reason. It's almost like it's my whole life now. Although, to be fair, I have spent like 8 hours watching it, which is a lot of time. But yeah, so 4th night, I didn't really dress up FNaF themed at all this time. I could not think of anything to wear. Although what I did do is I did bring a little bottle of Freddy Fazbear soda, so that counts for something. Also, this doesn't have to do with my viewing experience, but I decided to buy one of those pizza boxes online since I couldn't find any in theaters. And it's so much smaller than I thought it would be. I thought it was gonna be like the size of an actual pizza box, like the size of a pizza. I knew it was gonna be like long and short, but I thought it would be like maybe this tall and like this wide, like the size of a pizza. I didn't think it would be this tiny, so not a good use of $15. Yeah, this viewing experience, I think this might have been the most interesting one. Not because of the movie itself, just because of what happened. So basically, I this time was going to the movie by myself. I decided not to bring a phone charger, even though my phone was low on battery, because, you know, I'm watching a movie, I don't need a charger. But the thing is, I bought the ticket, and then after like a few minutes, I realized I got the time wrong. I thought the movie was starting at 6:15. It was starting at 6:45. So I ended up getting there like 50 minutes before the movie was gonna start, which wouldn't be that bad, because, you know, I could just go on my phone the whole time, but like I said, it was about to die, so I couldn't do that, and I didn't want to just sit in the theater for 40 minutes, so instead I decided to leave the theater and go into another one, just see what's going on. Like, not a different movie theater, but a different theater, and like a different room in the theater. And it was previews, and then after like 10 minutes or whatever, a voice came on saying, don't forget to put on your 3D glasses. So it was actually a 3D movie, which was The Marvels. So I watched that until the FNaF movie started. It was, I don't know, it was alright, I guess. But then, yeah, I watched the FNaF movie. This was actually the probably loudest movie experience so far. I feel like every time I watch it, the crowd is more enthusiastic. There were a lot of laughs this time. They laughed at pretty much every joke in the movie and all the funny scenes, which was nice. Alright, so night 4. Honestly, I don't remember what happens during the daytime. But during the nighttime, Mike goes back to the pizzeria with Abby, and this time Vanessa's actually already there. So they're like, hi Vanessa. Vanessa's wondering why Mike brought Abby here. And then they end up having this scene where Abby's playing with the animatronics, and then she tells them she wants to build a fort, and Mike's like, hey, we probably shouldn't get too close to these. They're really big, they could be dangerous. Mike's like, right, Vanessa? And then she says, I think we could use the tables for the fort. and then they have this montage, which is probably maybe my least favorite thing in the movie, where it's them and the animatronics building a fort. Bonnie and Foxy end up on top of 2 chairs doing stuff, and then Bonnie like throws up his arms and he's smiling, and then he falls back and then gives a thumbs up to say that he's okay. And that scene, man, the first time I watched it, I hated it so much. I just thought it was so dumb, because the animatronics are supposed to be scary. This completely got rid of all the scare factor, and it also didn't make any sense. How did they get on top of the chairs, you know? Why is Bonnie doing a goofy smiley face? I don't know. Although the more I've seen the movie, the more this scene has grown on me, and I don't hate it as much anymore. I do think it's kind of weird, like maybe they could have executed it a little different. Then after they build the fort, Vanessa and Mike go into a room to find a tablecloth, and Mike wonders, you know, how do you know where the tablecloths are? And then basically they see this suit, which is a character that I won't spoil, I guess. I mean, I'm spoiling the whole movie, but whatever. It's a cool thing to see. But yeah, there's a suit on the floor, and it's got its, like, stomach opened up, so Mike, like, goes in, he's gonna touch something, and Vanessa says, no, don't touch that. I wouldn't touch that. And then she says they're spring locks. They're very, you know, unstable. She grabs a broomstick, pokes it in, it's completely, like, shatters the stick. And then some stuff happens. Mike says something like, what else haven't you told me? What if Abby had found that? And then Vanessa says, I didn't bring her here, you did, and I can't understand why. Then Mike says that the ghost kids like Abby, so maybe if she talks to them, they can figure out who killed Garrett. And then, you know, like, Vanessa gets angry at Mike, and then they go back outside. Abby ends up, like, strumming Bonnie's guitar, which, like, basically explodes. And then she gets, like, sent back and injured or whatever. But yeah, and she ends up fine, they end up leaving, and then Vanessa basically yells at Mike and says, if you ever bring her back here, I will shoot you. And then they go home. So yeah, it was an interesting night. Night 4, probably not my favorite. I think it was really cool seeing that animatronic in the back room. But yeah, probably my least favorite part of the movie. But, you know, we're gonna move on to night 5 next, which is probably my favorite part of the movie. Excited for that. I actually am pretty excited to watch the movie again, which is weird since I've watched it 4 times already. I really like the ending. The ending's really cool. I really like watching it. So yeah, I guess I will do that, and I will see you during night 5. Alright, I watched the FNaF movie for the 5th time, and it was great. I finally survived 5 nights at Freddy's. So I went back alone again to the same theater, but luckily the person at the theater was a different worker, so they didn't think I was weird for watching it twice. Even if they did, I guess it's not as bad as knowing I watched it 5 times. But yeah, so I went there. As you can see, I didn't actually dress up this time at all. Still just a regular shirt, because I've seen the movie 4 times already. I don't think I need to get dressed up for it. But yeah, so this movie, I enjoyed watching it, of course. I loved the FNaF movie. I will say I wasn't, like, as excited throughout, because I've already seen everything 4 times already, so I'm seeing it a 5th time now. It's not as exciting, although I was really excited to add a lot of parts, surprisingly, like the training tape, you know, when they have the first Showtime performance, the ending, of course, because I love the ending. So yeah, this was probably my least exciting viewing of the movie, but I still did really enjoy it. Weird thing, though, is I felt like the screen was really dark. Like, at first I was just thinking, okay, maybe the shots are just dark and I never realized it, but then I was looking at it, and even, like, the whitest parts of, like, a light or a reflection seemed pretty dark, so it just was dark for some reason. So some of the shots, it was kind of hard to tell what's going on, and it kind of threw off the movie a bit being like that, but it didn't really matter because it was my 5th time seeing it. Another weird thing about this viewing is that the people there were so quiet. The theater had not a single laugh or scream or gasp the entire time. Like, every movie I've been to, people laughed at, like, at least a few parts, like some of the jokes or stuff like that. Like, especially the thing, like, with Hank running and screaming. Everyone always laughs at that. Not a sound at any joke. I don't know, these were very boring viewers. But yeah, so night 5, what happens this time is, first of all, since Abby's not allowed to be back, Vanessa told Mike not to bring her back, Mike calls up Aunt Jane to babysit her. Abby thinks that he's giving her away to Aunt Jane. That's not what's happening, but that's what she thinks, so she goes and hides in her room. Mike goes, he gets some sleeping pills since Vanessa threw his away. He goes back to Freddy's and goes to sleep. This time in his dream, he has a different one where Garrett and his parents are just hanging out. He doesn't get kidnapped, and then he's very confused, like, why is this happening? The ghost kids tell him that he can have this dream every night if they just give them Abby. And then he says yes, and then he's like, wait, no, this is bad. I shouldn't do that. Don't mess with her. Stay away from Abby. And then all of the ghost kids attack him, and he gets a bunch of cuts all over him. And then he wakes up. He's in the scooping machine, or whatever that weird torture device is. The stuffing machine, I guess. And unlike Bob at the beginning of the movie, that's the name of the security guard, he does manage to escape. He opens the door, and then we eventually find out Vanessa is, like, helping him. Also, while Mike is gone, apparently the ghost kid with the blonde hair goes over to his house, maybe kills Aunt Jane, either kills her or knocks her out, and then tells Abby it's time to play, everyone's waiting for her, so they go back to the pizzeria. Then some stuff happens that I won't spoil, because it's a big reveal, and then Mike ends up going back to the pizzeria to go try to save Abby, because he knows what's going on. Chica tries to stuff Abby into a suit, and then Mike stops her from doing that, and then the rest of the movie, I'm not going to tell you what happens, because the ending is awesome. I think anybody that watches it, especially if you're a FNaF fan, will think it's really cool, so if you haven't seen it, go do that. But yeah, that's the whole movie. I really loved it. I mean, of course, I had to have loved it if I watched it 5 whole times. There were some parts that I didn't think were the best, but overall I thought it was a great movie. I think the 30% score on Rotten Tomatoes is insane. I don't know how they gave it such a low score. I think at least it should be 50 or something. But yeah, I can't wait for the second movie to come out. That's gonna be great. I really like this movie, even after watching it 5 times. I think it's my favorite movie of all time. Spending 5 nights at Freddy's was great. I would love to spend a 6th night, and I probably will next month if it's still in theaters. But yeah, so that is the end of the video. If you want to subscribe, you can click the button on top of my head. If you want to watch some of my other videos, you can click these buttons over here. And I'll see you, I guess, if I do this again when the second movie comes out.